All right, by now you've no doubt heard the term police brutality and excessive force and all of that. And I'm going to tell you, it's one of the most abused concepts in both law enforcement and the public community, those who support the police. This is going to be a video for the cops. And police brutality, it's the single most abused crime in law enforcement because of how it's not investigated in comparison to both the police and the citizens, and then how, as a cop, you want to avoid it. It's as simple as that. I went and I picked up a compilation of videos out there just to give you examples on this. And I think one of the things we need to look at is, after we define what use of force is, you need to know how to not get cut in the crosshairs of being the next YouTube sensation and how it goes. So we need to start with a couple different things off the bat. Number one is times have changed. People need to look at the fact that public perception is everything now. It doesn't matter if there's a 20-minute video or a 2-hour video that will ultimately be uncovered during the investigation. The public only cares about what the media is putting out. So if that's the case, you have to start looking and talking to yourselves and going, how do I protect myself from everything when it comes down to being a cop and still do the job? Well, number one, that's going to come down to a couple different things: your training, your ability, your delivery of the training, your application of the training, and then your emotional state. And then you're reminding yourself of what your job truly is. I want to break this down really quickly for those who have seen this. This is the use of force continuum. It's a pyramid. It's the most generic one out there. You've got presence and verbal communication, empty hand control, weapons and impact weapons and chemical agents like a taser, and then deadly force. The objective. The primary objective of use of force is to force necessary to effect an arrest. That's it. You're taking somebody into custody. A crime is committed. You have probable cause to take somebody under arrest. There's going to be criminal charges. The force that you use at the minimal level to put somebody into custody is what the goal is. Now, for me to back up, because who am I to talk about this? Number one, I'm a former use of force instructor. I am a defensive tactics expert. I am still currently a martial arts instructor, a high school folk style wrestling coach, and I've been involved in combative since I was 11 years old. I love to fight too. I've got that killer mentality where it's like you got to go out there, and I'm a guy and testosterone. So I understand all perspective of this. I've never gone outside of the scope of what use of force was allowed. I've never abused my authority. I'll tell you how. I'll tell you who prevented me from abusing my authority. And I was just damn good at my job to where if I came up on a scene, I had the ability to both talk to you and take you into control tactics, put you into custody without having to do anything excessive. I've had my pistol pulled out numerous times on the job. I've had my finger on the trigger once, never pulled the trigger, thank God. And I've done things as far as disarmed people who stuck knives in my faces, been in combatives, taking people into custody foolishly by myself, all of that, but I've never abused the authority of that. Let's talk about the direction of where use of force is coming and why we're at such a time where you cops out there, man, you're in danger. You really are. And if you don't start armchair quarterbacking, if you don't start holding each of you accountable, you're going to run into a place where it's going to be like the public perception is now innocent, or it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And when you think about that, proven guilty, it's the state's burden to prove that the aforementioned person who's arrested for a crime is guilty by evidence and facts. It's very simple. Well, the public is not going to let you have that anymore, right? What they're going to do is they're going to deem you guilty until proven innocent simply by virtue of you wearing a badge and having an authority that they just don't. So I want to show, I've been talking about this for years. This is a problem that is coming your way. This is PERF, Police Executive Research Forum, and I first saw this in 2014. Actually, this was brought up to us, but in March of 2016, I want you, there's just one key to this, and I've been talking about this for years. The standard for use of force, and I should have said this: you have force necessary to effect an arrest, and then you have deadly force. Force required to terminate life-threatening behavior. Life-threatening behavior. And I've used these examples many times. There's a lot of videos in our catalog that you can take a look at where I've talked about where use of force starts and stops and it's completely in the incident, and it doesn't matter how high your emotions are. And a guy just killed a daycare full of 30 kids. If he surrenders, you can't put a bullet in his face, no matter how bad you want to. And that's the biggest frustration about why cops have the hardest job in the world, and they're used like pawns. Use of force is mostly abused by command staff, your city or state or county prosecutors, and the judges, and the mob, the citizens. Now, I'm going to address this from the point of view, from a police officer's point of view. And you have to remember, the mob is on your side, and then they'll turn against you insanely quickly. And who's the mob? The mob is the citizens. And right now in America, the citizens are so disgruntled at the amount of crime that's out there and the lack of accountability through the correctional facility or the correctional system, through the judges actually sentencing people properly, through the recidivism rate. So that's your state not doing the job, the state taking cases they only want to win. You know how it goes. You get your on-call state's attorney and you got somebody on a righteous bust, and they're like, no, drop that down to a misdemeanor or cut them loose. And you're like, what? Or you take somebody to court who shot somebody, and it's the 5th time you've arrested this guy, and what does the judge do? They release them on their own recognizance. And you're going, what? And the public doesn't see any of that. But what does the public want? They want you to be the ones on the street who are administering the punishment. So we have to start where both the public is on your side, and the public is the greatest hindrance to the performance of your duty and will cost you your career if you can't control your emotions. Now, listen, I'm very critical against bootlickers, but I'm also very critical against the public who attack you without knowing what the job is. And I know that a lot of my content comes across like I'm anti-cop. I'm anti-bad cop. There's no question. And I want you to just smarten up and go, holy crap, no matter how many back the blue stickers there are on people's cars and their t-shirts, it's that, they're going to string me up when it turns down time for me, my head to be on the chopping block because I did something they don't like. The use of force standard comes from objectively reasonableness. And it used to be Tennessee versus Garner, and that was a fleeing subject who shot a kid who was running away, and they go, oh, no, you can't shoot fleeing felons anymore. Then there are cases where I believe there's 15 fleeing felons that you can use deadly force on if you can articulate, well, that person was actively running into, if somebody has a gun in their hand and they're running away, you're going to have a hard time shooting them in the back and terminating the life-threatening behavior, because the courts will say, what's the life-threatening behavior? He was running away with a gun. But if you could say, yeah, listen, he was running away with a gun into a crowd and he had just established that he shot up a daycare, I am preventing and terminating life-threatening behavior, then, that's going to be something that is going to be a little bit farther in your favor for that. When it comes down to standard use of force, you have to remember it's dictated by the criminal. And this is where you guys as cops are setting yourselves up for failure by always counting on the bad guy to escalate or de-escalate use of force, and why a lot of you are screwed if you don't start paying more attention. Police Executive Research Forum, on their 4th tenet, talked about changing the standard of objectively reasonableness, which is from Graham v. Connor. It's like an orange juice case, right? This is the totality of what the officers know at the time, readily available for them to use the force on the subject. And, it's a very, very good dynamic case test. Go ahead and read it. There's videos on YouTube, watch it. But the PERF, Police Executive Research Forum, listen to me very carefully on what they want to change here. And I'm kind of blocking it, but here are some considerations for proportional use of force. That key word is going to end your careers. Proportional. Think about this for a second. Police Executive Research Forum published a guideline principles of the use of force in March of 2016, which includes principles on a proportional use of force. No longer objectively reasonable, but proportional. And to be honest, this is on you guys. You guys have abused the objectively reasonable by not calling your own out, by not standing up against those who have gone beyond the scope of what they should use, by keeping that blue brotherhood, which you know damn well will stab you in the back when it comes down to your turn, but you have not policed your own. This is where you're screwed, because they are changing the concept of objectively reasonableness. Would the use of force that was used be viewed as objectively reasonable by a majority of the police officers out there? It's like, yeah, a guy ran up to me, balled his fist in his hand, said, "I'm going to punch you in the face," cocked his fist back. Therefore, Bill Goldberg speared him, cut him in half, got him on the ground, jammed his head in the back, I jammed his neck into the pavement, putting his head in the pavement, where I was able to secure his arms behind his back, take him into custody. And you're like, that's objectively reasonable. I see no problem with that whatsoever. But now they're going to change this to proportionality. Here are some considerations for proportional use of force. I'll finish this last sentence. I'm sorry. Use of force, officers should only use the minimum force necessary to achieve a legitimate law enforcement objective. That's asking a lot. It's asking a lot, right? There are times where you need to go above, and a concept would be, I walk into a domestic, and to calm the situation down, instead of, I got people screaming and it's chaos and there's kids and there's a dog barking, instead of going, "Hey miss, would you sit down on the couch for me and so I could determine what's going on," instead of doing that, I walk in, I go, "Sit the fuck down and shut your mouth." Now, in the concept of command presence, I may have escalated it by using language that would offend some people, but that escalation was not the minimal use of force, being command presence, and this is all gray, that would achieve a goal. It's going to change somebody's state, get them going, "Well, what did you just say?" And they're going to get them go, "Whoa," and my command presence and backed up upon my appearance, whether or not I'm slovenly, in shape, well-groomed, boots polished, uniform tailored and ironed. All those go into command presence. If we have somebody going to go, "Okay, I'm going to comply immediately," because there's going to be it's a human innate nature of, man, there's going to be consequences to my action if I don't comply immediately. So sometimes we do escalate use of force within those tenets to gain the compliance we need. The public will never understand this. Well, I need to go back to this. Officers should also consider whether there is a less harmful option to achieve the same objective. During a fast, rapid, constantly and ever evolving situation, people are asking the impossible. They're asking the impossible. But if this is so gray and it's impossible, how do we solve this problem? By policing your own more, placing a much higher demand of standards on yourselves, and when you see abuse from within your own department, you take decisive action. And we need an increase in criminal charging against police. Now, I know you don't want to hear that, but I'm going to explain why this is going to be a good thing for you in the future. Here's some considerations for proportional use of force. Deadly force should only be used in response to an immediate threat of death or physical harm to the officer or others. Serious physical harm to the officer or others. I agree with that. That's no problem. We had a case up in Grays Lake 20 years ago where a cop, from what I was told, was in a headlock being drowned in a pond, and cops came up and they beat the subject. Well, no, they could have walked up without saying a word and pumped rounds into the person's head, the subject's head, and terminated that life-threatening behavior. And they would have been completely cleared in the use of force continuum, but they just didn't do that. Non-deadly force should be used if the impact is likely to be disproportionate to the threat. This verbiage is going to be the death of you, because this next part, or the next two parts, third part I get to, is going to be the crucifixion of your career. Non-deadly force should be used if the impact is likely to be disproportionate threat. Okay, I already get that. Next one. This is the one that will end your careers and end the way that things go. And I've been talking about this for a decade now, and it's coming. It's coming, and with more nonstop daily use of force videos that show that cops don't even know what the First and Fourth Amendment is, they're going to change this. Your lives are going to be ruined when it comes down to your ability to do your job properly and articulate why you did what you did, and being backed by policy, law, case law, and then public perception. This is it, public perception right here. Officers should consider how the general public would view their actions. I say that again. Officers should consider how the general public would view their actions. That's your death sentence. That's your death sentence. Because the problem is now you have an angry mob. And this is what's gotten out of control. Blame your state or district attorneys, your judges, and anybody else who is letting these criminals back on the street. You show up, your job is to, this is why this here is why law enforcement is the hardest job in the world. You show up to a theft call, right? Okay, the crime had already been committed. Now you're there and you're taking the information from, the senior citizen who ordered something from Amazon and the package is on her doorstep and then she just didn't sign for it, so now it's taken. Now you're doing post-crime work. Motor vehicle accident, post-crime work. DUI, once it's stopped, post-crime work. 90% of your job is after the crime is committed, you're collecting evidence, statements, witness statements, facts about the case, and you're putting them together to hopefully collect a warrant or effect an arrest later on down the line. Where it's the hardest part is the use of force. It's when you use force necessary to effect an arrest or to terminate life-threatening behavior that is the hardest part in the world, because now you are juggling policy. Because a lot of department policies are different when it comes down to use of force. Use of force may be standard, but it's not. It's not. You're going to have your own command staff's view of your use of force. The public. So you have John Doe, who's never committed a crime before on the planet, and you take him into custody and you put a double arm bar in and he breaks his shoulder blade, but because he was resisting while somebody else is putting on the handcuffs? Or is it John Doe B, who, man, it's his fifth time being arrested and the state is doing nothing. The courts are doing nothing. And all of a sudden the public are so tired of this. They're like, yeah, break his arm, putting him into custody. You're leveraged as the henchman of the people when it comes down to all of this by both the state and the public perception. And then the public perception, it goes one of two ways. The mob wants you. The mob hates you. They love you. They hate you. They're like, yeah, what do you see it in comments all the time on police use of force videos. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. F around, find out. Or then you got the other crowds, didn't do nothing. He got arrested for nothing. Police brutality. You're being asked in those moments of use of force application to have every single right answer to satisfy opposing sides instantaneously, all while still doing your job. It's an impossible task. It's an impossible task. So let's mitigate the risk of how you keep yourselves in check, do the job properly, and walk forward righteously and change the relationship between the public and the police. We have to look at that, because if they continue on with the concept of public perception and you look at proportionality, you're done. Because if you have a subject who has a firearm, and here's the test. You've heard this for years. Why can't you just shoot them in the leg? The public doesn't understand the job. So they see a 15-year-old kid who's pointing a 9mm at you. Then all the public sees is the 15-second video. Kid comes out, or they don't even know it's a kid. They see a 5'10" black male come out of behind a fence, point a gun, cop lights him up, shoots him. All of a sudden the public is outcried because now the information comes out after the fact, which you didn't know. Kid was only 15. The gun was a toy gun. The gun wasn't loaded. The kid had autism. The kid had special needs. The kid was on mind-altering drugs. All of that stuff that is aftermath the public gets to know about, that's the stuff that's going to wind up crucifying you, because we know how your command staff is. They're looking for liability. They're looking to cover their own asses. The state is. It's just how it goes. Or what if the kid did have a loaded gun? He had intent to do it. He had just robbed a store. He shot somebody 2 weeks ago. And still, all of those factors, the public is going to be on your side and go, yeah, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You're glad he got the discipline that his father never gave him at home. Or what do you have on the other side, the mob? Well, you couldn't just talk to him? You couldn't just shoot him in the leg? You couldn't have used the taser? You are in a position of the most impossible job on the planet when it comes to use of force. So when I start to show you some context and I criticize you, it's for the sake of you thinking, and it's training, so that in the moment that you do have to act, that you can find access to your logic, your reasoning, your emotions, and get the job done with the necessary force that is required to effect an arrest, and then you can stop because it's just a job. It's just a job. I want to go over some of these, some use of force videos together. And this one started the other day. How this started, this video is, I put this up on YouTube, or on YouTube and social media, and I got the same response as always. We'll play the rest of the video. No, I will not play the rest of the video, because the context of use of force is always in the immediate nature of what's going on. I'm going to say this again. So watch this video for 45 seconds here. So we have useless police officers. This is what happens when you are untrained, you are weak, you are untactically sound, and in some cases you're a female, because there's a female here. Now, what I was told, I don't know because I couldn't find the completion of this video in the beginning, was that this guy who is trying to take into custody, hit the female officer in the face. I've talked about with a phone. Now, I've talked about this before. That just proves even more why female cops shouldn't exist, because now all of a sudden you have an emotional response from a male cop who's defending his coworker because she's female, and he's taking things up to the next high gear. Now, they got the public on the one side, which loves this, and they say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You got the public on the other side that says, why didn't he just comply? So many dynamic circumstances in this. Number one, striking doesn't equal custody. I'm going to say this a million times. If you're in defensive tactics, a striking technique is meant to stun and instantly transition from the lack of compliance into you gaining compliance. Compliance is all about control tactics. Grappling, wrestling. End of story. Grappling and wrestling. Now, again, I've been in a striking art for 30 years. I have amateur boxed, and I have been a wrestler since I was 11 years old. Striking will never take someone into custody. You saw, and you guys can go back and watch it, 4 blows, 4 elbow blows, which 100% applied to a temple, curvature of the jaw. They could cause death or great bodily harm. So we have police using deadly force while other cops have this person's hands getting ready to be put in custody. So when you're talking about use of force, well, yeah, the guy wouldn't stop resisting. Well, now you got fight or flight. When you have people who are going, well, why didn't you just comply? Literally, take all the components out there. Adrenaline dump, could be impairment by chemical or drugs or intoxication. You could have had a machismo, fight or flight kicks in. Do you really think that while people are fighting you and you truly believe you didn't do anything, that you're going to just actively go limp and go, okay, I'm going right, just take me right into custody? It's not going to happen. The striking, I'm going to tell you, it is meant to stun and immediately transition into taking somebody into custody. You're changing their state. You cannot articulate, unless this guy has a gun in his hand or a knife, you can't. You can't articulate that I was using a striking technique, and the cops will change the language, a stunning technique to change the behavior of the subject in order to take him into custody. Well, officer, why did you wind up striking him 4 times with an elbow if the first one didn't work? And why are your other officers unable to take him into custody? You need to start thinking dynamically when it comes to use of force. And I've said this before too. This is public perception. So this is 45-second video, and the public is only going to see this. It shouldn't. Here's the big problem with use of force that 99% of the public will never understand. If we saw this guy and he was stepping on kittens in the middle of the street and he lit an infant on fire, this use of force is still not justified. And I know that pisses you off. I know it pisses you off. The job of the police, and this is why they have the hardest job on the planet. You're asking cops to control their ego and their emotion. They could show up and see 5 dead kittens and a burnt toddler, and you're asking them to control their emotions, which I absolutely am, because they know the job that they get into. They know the job that they get into. And stop and only take the force necessary to take him into custody. If the guy has no weapons in his hands, you better take those hands behind his back. You got 2 bigger cops there. Why they were not hands, I don't know. Why they had a taser on, I don't know. You got 4 cops on, one with their backs turned. The mob could be taken into custody. And I know so many of you disagree with me on, well, no, you should be able to use of force. It's going to crack his head open after killing a toddler. That's what your courts are for. That is why you're in the greatest country in the world. You're innocent until proven guilty no matter what. I'm sorry. If that bothers you, go move to another country or start to understand what the point of use of force is. What is it for? It is not to punish. So we have to get right there. That's got to be the first thing as a cop you understand. Your job in no way, shape, or form is to punish someone. You have to control your ego. It doesn't matter what you see. It doesn't matter how emotional you get into it. Your job is to put that person into cuffs. And the fact that you can't control yourselves is why your careers are going to be over and why law enforcement is going to change. I'm not saying anything doesn't feel good. Would elbowing that guy in the face, if your female partner got struck, feel good? It would probably feel incredible. Probably feel incredible. But that's not the job you signed up for. That's not the oath you swore to. You swore an oath to be a better human being than most people. Hold yourselves to a higher standard, and you're not. You're just not. So we have to start to look at what use of force is for. Striking technique is meant to change behavior. A striking technique, and you saw 4 elbow strikes and it still didn't do any damage. Well, that's because they're untrained. They can't deliver energy properly in the form of an impact a technique, and they're out of shape. Normally, too, and I'll say this before I go on, when you see cops escalating force, it's because they know they're losing the fight, because they're out of shape, they're out of breath, they have no cardio, they have no tactics, they don't know what they're doing, they're spazzing out. You know, I coach wrestling, and when some of these kids are wrestling for their first year and they don't know a technique, what to do, they panic. They freeze up because they do not know the techniques to wind up getting out of an escape position or breaking somebody down or taking somebody down. They're like, and it's deer in headlights. You have the same thing. A use of force escalation, which is always said by the person that they're the bad guy, isn't true. Because in this use of force, having a female cop, if it's true, on the street, being struck in the face, escalated the use of force the officers used because their emotion was to protect her, was to side with her. If you're out of shape, you're going to reach for a gun faster because you know you're losing the fight. You're escalating the use of force. But policy and law will always protect the police, which I think is bullshit. It's utter bullshit. We need to start holding cops far more accountable because that will put the pressure on them to train harder, train better, be in better shape, know the law more, and have a higher standard of excellence on the job. And some of you don't want to hear that? That's tough. I don't care. It's what my level of expectation is, having sworn the same oath. Let's continue. Yeah, these are useless cops who can't these are useless cops who can't do the job, so they're escalating force, and they're gonna be backed by the law by saying, yeah, well, the subject, he's the one who escalated the force, and that's got to change. All right, so let's look at this for a quick second. Let's say, is this a justified use of force?
You niggas are bugging. Oh, shit.
Can't, man. Control your emotions. You can't justify that use of force. You're going to be causing massive head trauma. Is there a weapon on him? Does he have his hands are in full view? He's going for compliance. This is where your emotions and egos and adrenaline dumps takes over. This now, honestly, we should have. The reason we won't have criminal investigation into cops is why that this will never change. And what I mean by that is remove that's a police officer. And this is now it's another student, another citizen, and you get a call of a student is bouncing the head off of the what do you call it, the pavement of another student. And you walk up and you see this, and all of a sudden you're going to be looking for criminal charges to investigate, and you're going to do an investigation, right? And it's going to go from the totality of the circumstances and all this kind of garbage. We don't do that with cops. The state doesn't have enough resources to investigate cops. You have to think about this for a second. If I'm going to do a proper investigation, if I see this and this comes across my desk and I'm going to be investigating police officers, I'm going to want to know, what's that cop's training? What's their background? I'm going to scour their social media. If it's not public, I'm going to find everything I can on them. I'm going to interview people, find out what their view on other races are. I'm going to see how many times has this cop interacted with this person, with this kid? Does he have a history with this kid? Has this kid ever been in trouble before? Does this cop have an emotional attachment to them one way or the other? Which is all going to establish the biggest form out there, which is intent. Intent is the single biggest lacking circumstance for the totality of evidence and the totality of the circumstances of why cops will never be criminal prosecuted. Because the state, COPA out here in Chicago, everything else, they do not go into the intent behind a police officer and how many hours did the cop work that day? What's the cop's life at home? What's the cop's life with their sergeant, command staff? Is the cop? You're never going to find out what the intent is. And all cops are protected by law. Well, they're just using the force that was necessary to effect an arrest. What was their mindset? But we do that same thing when it comes down to prosecuting. We just saw Daniel Penny, right? You just saw a prosecution try to convict a man based off of his intent of killing somebody, and they went all at it when the evidence shows that that wasn't the case. So my ultimate point is this, is in use of force, you're automatically protected by law, by policy, by the use of force continuum, by the assumption that the use of force escalation is always going to be on the onus of the bad guy. Until there is agencies out there that start looking at the cops and going, hey, what's your intent in this? Did you have a bad day? Did you hate black people? How do you feel about them? What is your working relationship with this community? How many times have you dealt with this kid? What is your level? How many beers did you have last night? We don't do that. We don't do that. We never attach intent to the cops and how they do their use of force. But we sure as shit do it with citizens all the time. First degree murder, second degree murder, crimes of passion. What's the intent? Stealing. What if somebody goes in a store and they steal a loaf of bread? What's the intent? We are always asking the intent, but never with the cops. Never with the cops, and that has to change. That was deadly force, in my opinion. By the way, you're bouncing a subject who has no weapons, his head in the hand, and then you up to a striking technique. Again, that should be a criminal investigation. That should be a criminal investigation.
I was sitting on the steps and I was stopping you. For what? What the fuck?
That's losing his cool. This is not taking somebody into custody. This is losing your emotions, being out of control. And one of the biggest reasons why the cops always get away with this is because the public knows they can't fight back. Because it doesn't matter. The cop could be 100% wrong. You're going to have 50 cops on the street after this. And who the hell's going to fight against them? They're all armed. So sadly, you cops have to start realizing one day the public's going to step up and they're not going to tolerate your shit anymore. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Again, what's the intent on this? Let's look at this really quickly. Is this abuse of force? Abuse.
A chaotic scene turned physical on Sunday at the Dominican Day Parade for Arnardo Vargas Jr. You can see in this video the 25-year-old repeatedly punched on all sides of him by a handful of NYPD officers.
Fat, out of shape cops who are ganging up on a citizen. Is this taking him into custody? Striking will not take someone into custody. But if you push someone, if you control tactic, if you armbar, I don't care, half Nelson, takedowns. I'm not in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at all, but my God, there's so much value there. If you start watching this, there's going to be a very big common theme to this, that the single safest technique on the planet is the rear naked choke. But politicians jumped the gun thanks to Eric Garner, and they outlawed this. If you start looking at this movement, in every single use of force situation can be controlled with a rear naked choke. Get behind them, put them to sleep, learn to train it properly. You're not going to have to hit anybody. But again, politicians know best and they ruin the career. But I don't understand why you as cops are going to continue to strike. There's only one reason you strike. You're frustrated, you can't do the job, and you're punishing someone else because you know that damn well that whatever your intent is, rear naked choke right there. Put him to sleep. What's a strike doing? What is bashing his head in the pavement doing? This is police abuse. It's abuse of authority. It's police brutality. Rear naked choke would put them to sleep, but the politicians have convinced the public that it's the most dangerous technique out there. Again, let's see if strikes do anything. Oh, let's strike. He turned his back, slip him in a rear naked choke. Choke him out. He's going to stop the behavior if you are warranted into putting him into custody. But so far, I don't know what the crime is, right? And I'm talking about what's going to stop the escalation of force by the subject. And as cops, you're not going to resort to exhausting yourself out by punching yourselves out 20 million times. What happens if this guy keeps fighting? This cop is out of breath. You know he's going to his gun. You know he's going to his gun. It's police brutality because cops are lazy, untrained, and inept. Let's watch this one. What is he being taken into custody for? For mouthing off a cop? For got to leave? And here comes the punches. Punch, 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 punch. This is a bunch. These are criminals. Every one of these cops needs to have a criminal charge on them. Now, here's the deal, too. Don't think for 1 second that I'm on the side of the criminal, because I'm going to let you in on a secret. This is generalizations from my experience as a police officer. Whites are pussies. Hispanics are so full of pride, they will fight all the time. And the young urban fatherless criminal BLM element just wants to get a paycheck. They're not innocent. They're the I didn't do nothing. I got arrested for nothing. All that shit. They're the frustration you will experience as a police officer still does not give you the authority to go past that use of force to effect an arrest or terminate life-threatening behavior into dishing punishment. And your frustration on your lack of prosecution by state's attorney, district attorney, judges, recidivism rate is what is causing this. Because you see these people on the street every day. You know, 13%, well, from 13%, more like 6% of the population is committing 53% of the violent crimes. And then they're going on TV talking about how that's police's problem. It's the white community. And it's the numbers are there. And ask any cop. You've seen the pattern, you know the players, you know the regulars in your town, and nothing is ever done. It doesn't matter. You're not a vigilante. You chose this career. You chose to swear an oath to uphold the Constitution and uphold the law. You can't go beyond it. And that's where your excessive force is going to have to stop by your own damn ego. You have to control yourself. Again, striking doesn't do it. If you look at this was over fireworks complaint. More NYPD striking people over, and a taser comes out. And the problem is with the pig pile is once other cops get up on scene and they don't know what's coming on, they're going to escalate force too. You go to a taser. It's like, really? What's a taser being used for? From somebody he was pointing fireworks in an apartment window. Really? That's what you're going to start beating the shit out of somebody over? Well, you're going to go, oh, well, oh my gosh, you know, it could have caught the house on fire. That's where police charging really comes into play. Is by you looking at that, and then all of a sudden you have to press the charges to make sure they fit your use of force. This one has always really impressed me. This is a guy who shot at police at a car, and again, ask yourself, is this excessive force?
Recommending charges against two of their own.
Cell phone video from the incident in October.
Just so you know, too, these two cops were never criminally charged. I think they should be in jail. If you are in a position where you have superior firepower to a degree, unless the public really decides to wake up, you always know that you're going to win all the street fights because all the other, you just get on the radio and go, help, and then 50 other your boys in blue show up to outnumber the people until the public wakes up. I think that you should be held to a higher standard, which is what we say in the academy all the time. And if you abuse your authority, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You should be federally, criminally held accountable and charged immediately. This is one of those instances.
October showed 2 Phoenix officers kicking and hitting a man while he was on the ground. 2 Phoenix police officers are seen violently stomping on a suspect's head in this video as he was getting down. At another point, you can see them hit the man with their guns.
Yeah, that's deadly force. He clearly has no weapons in his hand. He shot at cops as they were in their car. So, what does the public say? Well, he shot at the police. He did. It's past tense. That's past tense, and he'll be charged for that crime. Yeah, I am asking cops to turn their emotions off, to step up to the plate and go, shit, we need to stop this, and learn not to be savage, drooling dogs looking at a bone. Where you have to access the control side of your humanity and go from that fight, getting into the fight, and learning when to stop it. These cops need to be criminally charged, but they're not. And it doesn't matter. I know you guys can't say it's not your job to sit there and pass any type of judgment on the criminals unless you're on that jury. But no, I take that back. You as the public, you can say this guy's a shitbag. He deserves to be under the bus, to jail, all this stuff. That's fine. But you cannot ask your police officers to do the dirty work. They cannot punish people. It's still due process. This guy surrendered, put his hands up, was on the ground, and they beat him with the pistol, stomped on his head. Can't do that. You can't. The fact that they got away with this, that is an absolute abhorrent call, I might say. Phoenix police, these cops should be in jail, and they're making it worse for the rest of you. Because at what point do these continue to happen? And I mean, I've got half hour worth of video here, and that was just the selective few that I chose from today, right? And it's like, well, we only got a few bad apples. No, dude, it's been going on for decades. It's been going on for decades because it all comes back to the common denominator of untrained, lazy, out of shape, ego-abused cops who do not feel that they're doing any impact on the street. And then you have a prosecutor and a judge who are not backing up what they do. They release criminals back on the street, and the public thinks that somebody's got to do something, therefore it should be the cop. It's a massive, cyclical, synergistic problem that it's always going to fall on the onus of the cop to deal with. It sucks, but they have to control themselves better.
As they get him into handcuffs there, police say right before this, the man shot at 2 officers in their patrol cars as they left a convenience store near 59th Avenue in Buckeye. The suspect was taken to the hospital before going.
Now, if they got out right here and gunned him down, 100% justified. 100% justified. But he ran into the store, surrendered his gun, and that's it. You have to learn to turn it off. Right there, man. Get out. Put that car in drive, and you go run him over.
An Arkansas police officer has been fired after being caught on video beating a handcuffed inmate in the back of his patrol car.
Now,
Jonesboro police officer Joseph Harris was fired after he was caught on his patrol.
Fired isn't enough. Criminal charging. This is not like Starbucks where you screw up somebody's order for the 20th time and you just can't get it right, so we're terminating your employment. They need to be criminally charged. This guy is raining bombs on this mentally ill subject's head. I don't care if the guy's a criminal shitbag either.
Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott.
Look at the sternum rub with his baton. He's trying to punish him. These are it closes the door on his head. But you as the public are not doing any favor to the police by going, good, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. No, it's always going to be my greatest wish that some of you who deal with the police in this way or support the police this way are going to come across cops like this. And they're going to treat your family the exact same way. And then the rest of us are going to go, well, your mom shouldn't have played stupid games and she wouldn't have won stupid prizes. Let's look at more of this. This is, again, some cops taking somebody into custody. Mesa police released. Okay. So again, so the call is that this was a domestic, right? It's going to say the same thing. Is that the cops showed up. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cops all show up for a call of a domestic where this guy was in this girl's apartment. And again, if the guy was actively beating his girlfriend and they showed up on this, 100% justified. 100% justified. But here's the totality of the circumstances. Robert Johnson's body language. Here's what they say. They say the cops say that Robert Johnson's body language was projecting that he was preparing to fight. You guys are protected by the law, man, and it's horrible. You should be arrested by the law. This was for a report for domestic, and because these are cops who showed up Officers responding for calls, ex-boyfriend was trying to break into her apartment. Yeah, if they show up and he's in the commission of doing it, then all of a sudden I could justify that use of force and I go to Batman. This is all ego. Listen, he just wouldn't sit down. It's all ego.
All the way down. All the way down. Dude, no. Dude, they told you to sit down.
Sit down, bro. Sit down.
And it's a pig pile. The second one cop goes hands on, the others just get involved. This is an instinctive rabid dog issue. You guys should stop trying to think herd mentality or beehive mentality. You should stop. Continue on.
San Bernardino tonight after cell phone video captures the rough arrest of a man last June.
Yeah, rough arrest. Okay, whatever. That's going to be the public's perception again, remember? Now the public, oh, the police are too rough with me. Okay, here's the one thing that you guys have to realize when it comes down to use of force. When you do it properly, you are so easy to defend.
Identified as Billy Hill, yelling at officers, asking why he was being arrested. That's when one of the officers uses a taser. Another officer begins striking Hill, hitting him a total of 16 times.
I think if it doesn't work the first 2 times, it's not going to work. And again, you're going to punishment. There's no pain compliance there. Nobody's going to get down on the ground when you're actively beating them. And to be honest, when you really look at the totality of the circumstances, if you have a cop like this who is criminally beating somebody, I will support the citizen who pulls out a firearm if they're conceal and carry, shoot and terminate the threat against them. You have to start coming to the conclusion that that's acceptable for our citizens, because why is it not? Cops put themselves, here's an older video. I need you to watch this. This is a cop putting himself in a position to have use of force used. This is a drunk, belligerent man. You can deal with it all the time, right?
The Philadelphia Oktoberfest has sparked a police investigation into an officer's use of force. Police say the man seen here, identified as John Scrivano.
What's the cop doing? The cop is getting in his face. He's got his hand on him. He's purposely putting himself in a position to where the drunk subject, take a swing, man. Take a swing. The cop is causing the escalation. Why? Because we have a badge, we have a gun, and it's because I said so. It's ego. This use of force triggers the subject to take a swing, and the cop then, oh, here we go. It's what I've been wanting for.
Was intoxicated and started the altercation when he slapped the officer.
That cop was looking for that to happen. He went baton to the head after he got slapped. He got in the face of the drunk guy, machismo. You're talking to another male who maybe he doesn't want to take your shit. He doesn't care about. Why do people think that people are just going to comply to cops? That's why you have so many shitty police officers on the street today. All these young kids, these females who think that just because they have a badge, people are going to automatically respect them. So what does the cop do? He prompts a slap because you shouldn't hit a cop. Tell that to somebody who's impaired, who's not in their right mind, and they're not thinking properly. They have their own adrenaline dump. They see red because they're already escalated a position. And then what does the cop do? That cop took that baton to that subject's head. That's deadly force. But again, how's the report going to read? You're not going to read intent. RO, responding officer, purposely got in the face to exude my authority. I'm the subject, to tell him I'm the law. You will submit and you will comply to my authority. And I got within an inch of his face as I was pushing on his chest, telling him sparking his machismo. You're never going to hear about the intent of the police. That's why there will be no criminal investigations, because intent is one of the main factors you need to prove the connection between the crime and the person committing it. Ego. Pure ego, man. Pure. Now he's hitting him with the baton in the head.
Broken bone in his face and is charged with assault. The officer is still on the street. Felipe Maya.
No, that cop should be in federal prison. The cops should be in prison, but the mob, you angry mob who love your blue line, say all the time, well, F around, find out, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Again, I'll tell you flat out, I hope this happens to your mother. For you to understand the power and the protection that is given to cops, you need this to happen to a loved one. You really do.
.com.
Held by the neck, a knee to the groin, and thrown to the ground. Video you'll only see on News 4 shows the violent actions by 2 DeSoto police officers. Now those officers are facing criminal charges.
This is all going to go into the frustration of you as a cop, too. Ask yourself, you know that you're going to be dealing with the drunks. You know that you're going to be dealing with the undesirable, and you're going to know you have the regulars, right? It's the 10th time in a row you've dealt with John Doe on the street, and John Doe never complies. He never does anything about, and you're going to get frustrated with him. This example is from a sergeant, too. Guy's got sergeant stripes. They lose their patience. Another female. You got to watch what she does.
Hold your head. Do this.
This is a pride thing, and to be honest, I was. We had a guy who wouldn't have his fingerprints. He refused to be fingerprinted, and it was not my arrest. I showed up as backup, and he ultimately got tased because he was He was a Hispanic man who was drunk and impaired. He thought that fingerprinting was going to immediately lead to his deportation status. So he's like, I don't want to be fingerprinted. He was forced into being fingerprinted. Why? Another cop on that scene tased him, punished him because their ego wasn't fed by being told what to do. So what do they do with him? Same thing. Choking this guy. She knees him in the groin. They throw him down the hallway. This is an ego game. This is again, and here's my thought on this. This is 2020. But we're at the point now where there's cameras everywhere. You can't keep saying it's just a few bad apples. You can't keep saying that because if it's a few bad apples, why are there an endless supply of video proof of problems that are just continuing to happen? I'm very curious to hear about Sheriff Grady Judd and his county. They don't have body cameras. How much do they get away with punishing people? And again, it's under the righteousness of how the sheriff is acting, and the citizens love him there because they're keeping people in line because they're dishing out the punishment when that's not the job. That's the Gestapo. That's your Nazis. You want that? Go ahead and keep doing it. This is more punishment and how that goes. Let's continue on. This was another one. This was a cop. Slaps this guy twice as he's attached to a gurney. Again, thank God he was criminally charged. He was also stealing drugs from scenes and selling them. This is insane. The amount of cops. This is another one. This is an older video of a pursuit. Remember, this is where you have to he almost hit a cop. He almost hit a cop there. And this is where people will justify it. This is one of the best examples of you have to turn it off. I've been in several pursuits. And the one time that I would have gone way too far with using force, thank God, I'll give him credit, was a police chief now, Wayne Wildy of the Round Lake Beach Police Department. We got a pursuit on afternoons. I remember the guy's name. He was going up and down side streets, zipping 40, 50 miles an hour. When he finally ditched the car and I got him, I'm hand on the back of his neck and I'm pressing him into the ground, handcuffing him, and I'm getting ready to torque those handcuffs. I had an adrenaline dump. I was like this. It was insane. And I pick him up and I'm like a dog. I got him by the back of the neck as I'm walking him. I'm like an inch from his ear, just motherfucking him. And yeah, back then he was my FTO. He was post my FTO. He was just a cop. But he sits there and he grabs me and he goes, "Done. Stop. You're done." And he had to snap me out of that because I'm wondering, shit, what would I have done if I didn't have another cop that was actually sit there and goes, you gotta watch yourself. And how often doesn't that happen? But again, here's a great example. We almost hit one of our brothers in blue. And, this brother in blue could have been somebody that everybody hates, too. It could have been the biggest problem in the street, whatever. But you get a pursuit, adrenaline dump, and then here we're going to go. We're going to continue this pursuit. The car is going to, the car 1050s or crashes. Watch this. The guy gets ejected, thrown right out, and watch what the cops do because they can't control themselves. Let's start, boom, hitting, kicking. Oh, there's a power dive. Boom, 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 boom. This is not police work. This is punishment. And the public says good. Every one of these cops, if they can't, listen, this is if they can't control their emotions, we need them gone. They need to be criminally arrested. And for those of you who are like, well, no, you're the ones who will not step up to do the work, and you're trying to get the dirty mob henchmen to do your work for you, because as an irresponsible citizen, you just don't raise your kids properly. It takes a village, and you don't even want to be a part of it. You don't hold your state accountable, your judges accountable, none of you, and you expect your cops to be the rabid dogs you let off the leash when you want them let off the leash for your purposes. Simple as that.
2 Georgia police officers fired after video surfaced on social media showing them punching and kicking a man in the head who was handcuffed on the ground. But tonight, one attorney claiming that video may be misleading. Here's ABC's Adrian Bankert.
Okay.
Tonight, hit and kicked in the face by police.
This video is a great example of how easy it is to defend you using force if you just used it right when you did. If you stopped abusing, do you know how easy it would be to justify you? And I would be coming to your defense every single time. I'm going to come to this first cop's defense on this one because what he did was good.
The man assaulted on video, now calling for those officers to be charged as criminals.
Punched, tased.
Once again, it's another upstanding member of the community who probably didn't do anything. I roll. I have no love for the community and their criminal behavior. I just don't. I think they're a bunch of criminal scumbags anyways. The stepping on the head, I can't justify. But I can this.
The situation escalating quickly. Watch as one witness captures video of Sergeant Michael Bongiovanni hitting Hollins, already on the ground.
No, he didn't. He used a stunning technique. Now, he had a pistol in his hand, and instead of holstering the pistol, what he went to is he collapsed his hand, took the forearm, and stunned against his head to change the state. And you can see he immediately goes for control tactic. Watch again. As we do this.
Demetrius Hollins was pulled over outside of Atlanta. The situation.
Watch this. Guy comes out of the car. Pistols drawn on him. Probably a pursuit. Hands are up. Okay, that's fine. He's got one hand in a control tactic. The cop has the pistol pointed at him, or it's a taser. I think it's a pistol. And he's got his left hand controlling the other guy's left hand. He collapses. Boom. That's not a hit so much as it is a stunning tactic. And watch this. He goes right into control. It cuts off, but that is a perfect application of a stunning technique. And my God, if you guys didn't abuse your authority so much, it would be so easy to defend you like this all the time. Let's jump ahead again. Let's see some more. This is amazing, yeah. How do you defend this? How do you defend all of a sudden somebody mouthing off to you when you're in handcuffs? Here's more. Handcuffed guy in the back of the squad car. I mean, oh yeah. So what? They're kicking out my squad window. It's state-supported property. Let them kick it out.
Right now, where's the water at? Don't water.
How do you justify that? How? It's if we're going to intent, I'd criminally prosecute all you cops. You lost your emotion, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Great. If you can't control yourself, then we need to criminally prosecute. You need to go to jail. You're put in a position, you have the right and the responsibility and the authority to take away somebody's freedom every single day when you deem necessary, lawfully, or their life lawfully necessary. But you guys can't control yourselves. So what? He's tapping on the window, tapping on the window, tapping on the window. A lot of you put yourselves in these situations where you're looking for a reason. You're looking for a reason to go force on somebody. And you're waiting for them to do one thing. All of a sudden, you find your criminal charge. Oh, look, you moved my window this much. Criminal damage to state-supported property. And then you're going to go in and you're going to use force on them.
I told you to stop.
How?
Window. You hear me?
It's a window. How is that force? Now, he's already in custody. Use of force. Force necessary to take somebody into custody. He's already into custody. Continue. This is another one here from this. Taser doesn't work. So you're punching him with handcuffs out? That's a deadly weapon, brother. This is all when your training sucks, you can't do the job, you're out of shape, you have no tactics. That's all this is. And again, I blame the government for outlawing the rear naked choke. That should be used. That would end it right there. You put him to sleep, take him into custody. Another example, this guy's still fighting. Once you put them to sleep, they can't fight. Why are you still hitting? Strikes do nothing. They do nothing but guarantee you have a lawsuit on your side. This one's another one. The guy is complying, then all of a sudden the cops just take him down to custody.
He is then hit repeatedly.
I hit this. Yeah, I'll play this for a second.
But I wasn't trying to attack them.
Monday, he and his attorney, Robert Shikes, filed a lawsuit against the American Fork Police Department.
You saw him on the ground, hands up. No need to tackle him from behind.
Now, there probably could be, because if they can articulate that there was somebody, whatever the call was, because somebody had a weapon or something, he was terrorizing people, I have no problem with that tackle. None.
You to do when you're being tased like that.
Greenland says he was in the parking lot at his girlfriend's car.
I have no problem with that tackle because it's going to gain compliance if he wasn't moving fast and swiftly enough to get in a position, or if he was questioning orders. No problem with that.
In the car. So I guess that's why they were there, maybe for that.
What am I being arrested for?
But I had no idea, like what.
Again, and the public is always going to play dumb. I don't know why I was doing whatever. So it's always against you. Always against you.
Two Ohio police officers who prosecutors say killed Frank.
This is another one. Shut your mouths.
Body camera video shows officers Camden Birch and Bo Shonegi wrestling the 53-year-old to the ground back in April, one kneeling on him.
I can't breathe. I can't. I can't breathe.
You're fine.
Yep.
Don't. That's where you. Here's another black man who died. It was a cardiac arrest, contributed to him struggling, right? But you're going to be vilified, and because you opened your mouth, you're fine. You're good. Shut your fucking mouth. That's where you lose. That's where you would have been 100. This guy had crashed his car, ran into a bar, was terrorizing the bar patrons. You were 100% justified in the use of force, taking him into custody. Once you opened your mouth, what did you do? You proved intent. You proved your intent was to punish. Do you not understand how quickly and instantly that changes? You go from, I'm there to take you into custody and use force. And here's a statement from the chief. We urge the people to give these officers the same rights as the people they arrest. They are innocent until proven guilty. No, because you don't criminally prosecute your officers or do the investigation the same way you would citizens. You will, if this were citizens who did this, you would be collecting all the information to see whether or not that the patrons, just like Daniel Penny, did they want to stop him because he was disrupting people on a train or in a bar, or did he have a criminal mindset and you want to punish him? Can you imagine if Daniel Penny was on the train? Shut the fuck up. You just shut the fuck. And he was oh my God, they would have been able to attach intent to him. But we don't do that with cops. We stop with the investigation by saying, well, they're covered by law. Start looking at intent. Let's look at maybe one or two more here.
They are to hold police.
Yeah, here's another one. You're handcuffing somebody and you punch them. Well, she spit on the officer. Don't put yourself in that position, dude. And thank God you get this. If you lose yourself like that, yeah, you need criminal charges, because until we start criminally charging and arresting cops to change this status of what's going on, nothing's ever going to change. Nothing's ever going to change.
From being released, WBTV's chief investigative.
Here's a great example of what's going on with this one. Is you just look at the body language of the cop who is taking this person he's already in custody, but what does the cop do? The cop is aggravated. He's just in his face, chokehold. This is a submit to my authority. You can't lose yourselves like this just because the level of demand on your professionalism, the expectation is huge, but your county, your judges, your states or district attorneys, they're not doing their jobs and they all expect you to do it. You have to protect yourselves, and you need other cops on there going, Sarge, get your hands off him now. You need to be pulled off. You need to be pulled back. When you look at contexts like this, and I reviewed this one a couple of years ago, it was, again, unless this guy has a gun, what are they doing?
In the video are two Crawford County Sheriff's deputies and a Mulberry police officer. The video.
Strikes don't work. Strikes don't work. And if three grown men can't take somebody into custody, all these cops need to be criminally charged. When you start threatening, oh shit, man, I better up my training, know the law, I better know how to do all of this stuff so I prevent myself from going to jail, then shit will change. But it's just not going to. It's just not going to. And we're always going to protect criminals. Last two I want to play. Obviously, Eric Garner is one of the most important ones out there because I don't believe that the officer, Pantaleo, I don't believe for 1 second that the chokehold, because he lets it go. Garner's still talking.
All right, stop. Give us your hands, buddy.
Garner's still talking. Okay, right there. The chokehold was let go. It was only applied for maybe 5 seconds in that position. So it was an overweight person who suffered a heart attack. I don't know what the autopsy is, so I don't want to misspeak on here. I don't agree whatsoever with Pantaleo being held accountable. I think Pantaleo exercised on somebody who was bigger, stronger, and a repeat offender that they knew would resist. He said, not today. It was the safest technique to get the job done, and it did the job. Now, you want to change this shit? Change the laws. Again, here we had loose cigarette laws that put him in a position to have to use a force. Again, this was the police being used as the henchmen of the public. And then lastly, this is probably one of the most important ones out there ever. This was just visual punishment. Derek Chauvin. Yes, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. This is Derek Chauvin, who has no sense of urgency for taking somebody to custody. His hands on his thigh. He doesn't have to move. He's pinning him down like he's some fucking lion he shot on the Serengeti, and he's posing for the public for 9 minutes. This is one of the most brutal, cruel, most egregious use of forces on the planet for law enforcement, as far as I'm concerned, not because it was anything other than punishment. And Chauvin was punishing Floyd for again, intent. We have to go back. Did they have a relationship? What knowledge? We still, as much as people want to say, well, George Floyd held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach, blah, 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 years ago, doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. Use of force is used in that moment. And due process is used as is afforded to subjects as well all the time. Doesn't matter if this is the person's 20th arrest. The judges who won't do their job and the prosecutors who won't do their job, they're the ones we have to blame for the recidivism, and we don't. This, again, this is the worst example of use of force in the last 50 years as far as I'm concerned when it comes down to law enforcement, because you have a cop who is purposely punishing a subject because they can. And again, at the trial, they should have asked Chauvin, what's your relationship with him? Did you know him? I don't know if they did or not because I didn't watch it. What was your intent that day? What were you thinking? All this. The bottom line when it comes to use of force as a cop, logic, reasoning, training, in shape, physically fit, mental acuity, application of your training, knowing when to stop, and then counting on your coworkers, if you don't know when to stop, to pull that plug and go, hey, listen, you got to back off. You got to back off. If you guys held yourselves far more accountable for use of force against police brutality, the times where you did have to punch somebody 7 times in the face to get them into custody will be so much easier to defend. The times where you do have to shoot somebody 30 times in order to wind up terminating their life-threatening behavior will be easily defensible. The times where you do have to break somebody's arm to get them into custody, bounce their head off the pavement, those times will be righteous, will be easily explained to the public, and they will be accepted, and it will be very, very, very easy to defend. You will keep your jobs and your integrity. But right now, you really want to change? You better start blaming your district attorneys, your state's attorneys, and your judges, because they're the ones that are putting you in this position to have the public pulling you in 2 different directions. Let them go, punish them. Let them go, punish them. Let them go, punish them. And you as the police, you can't. You have to remember, my job is to use necessary force to effect an arrest, go home at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, it's just a job. Guys, I hope this breakdown made sense to you. Police brutality is the single greatest, most abused crime on the planet because it's not investigated properly. We don't ever attach intent of the cop onto the subject who is they're dealing with, and we don't hold criminal accountable. We fire them. We fire police officers. We need to start criminally charging them to weed out the shit and to bring in the righteous of people who actually want to do the job properly, and we can wind up backing them. Hope that made sense. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you want the truth about the mindset of police, how how they do what they do, why they, and when they do it, and why they keep doing it, then subscribe to the channel and check out all the videos I've done on this subject. Join me live every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. We watch a video together and then you call in. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How can we change cop culture together? Getting a hold of me is easy, 708-982-0974, or send me an email to officerdominickizzo@gmail.com. Guys, you could support the police and still remember you have rights. Don't talk to the police. Keep your mouth shut. Remember, fish only get caught when they open their mouths. Thanks for the support to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.